Hesh Sagafi, Liberty Home Mortgage, and you know what I'm talking about today? How important is your employment history when it comes to getting a loan? It takes 3 things to get a mortgage loan. It doesn't matter if you go to me, you go to Wells Fargo, you go to Bank of America, you go to Rocket Mortgage, you go to your local bank, you go to your credit union. It doesn't matter if you live in Alaska, Oregon, Washington, wherever. Does not matter, okay? The guidelines are pretty much the same for the most part. And I will tell you this, there are 3 basic steps to getting a mortgage loan. Number 1 is credit, number 2 is income, and number 3 is money. Credit determines if you can even get a loan, income determines how big of a loan you can get, and a little bit of money for your earnest money, your appraisal, your inspection, your insurance, your closing costs, your down payment, on and on. You need some money, okay? This video is on income, okay? Income as it relates to your employment. I've done videos on this. When it comes to analyzing your income and determining how important your employment history is, there are basic steps of this that you want to pay attention to. When it comes to the income part, imagine there are 3 stones in a pond and you're on one side of the pond and you want to get to the other side, okay? The first stone is your credit. Do you have the credit to get a loan? If you don't have the credit, it's a waste of time to go through the other 2. The second stone is income. Do you have the income to get a loan? How much of a loan can your income qualify you for, okay? When it comes to income, there are 2 things that we look at. Number 1, we look at the amount, the physical dollar figure. And number 2, we look at the source of the income, okay? This is the employment side of it. Let's start with the dollar figure. A lot of people will say, Hesh, I make $20 an hour at my job. That's $41,000 a year. All right, $20 an hour. And they'll say, Hesh, that's how much money I make. And then all of a sudden they give me their pay stub. This is the dollar figure. The amount of the income is how much, volume-wise. What's your income? 60 grand a year salary, 150 grand a year salary, whatever it is. That's the amount of the income, okay? Then there's the source of the income. Now watch, I guess I'll come back, I'll stay on the amount of the income for right this second. On the amount of the income, a lot of people will then give me their pay stub. And the next thing I know, I look and I say, wait a second, your pay stub, you only worked 28 hours last week or in the last 2 weeks. And they'll say, Hesh, well, I'm full-time, I'm 40 hours a week. And I'll say, well, why does your pay stub show 28 hours? This is the stuff that we look at. And by the way, if you're a loan officer, you better be watching this video and taking notes. As a matter of fact, this video is more for loan officers than it is customers, okay? Loan officers are pictures like Picasso painted to screw this up. The number 1 issue we have in my industry, or one of the biggest issues, or probably the biggest issue, is employment and income calculations or differences of opinion. We'll get in debates with people, Hesh, this should be used. Your income at $20 an hour should be used at a 40-hour work week, even though every single pay stub you've given me shows that you do not work 40 hours. And sometimes I've had loan officers say, Hesh, but the employer said they work 40. Okay, the employer said they work 40. The pay stub shows they have not worked more than 30 all year, and it's December, for God's sakes, okay? When it comes to the amount of income, I want to know how much, what's the dollar figure, and then we're going to look at the consistency of hours. How many hours do you work? That's the amount of the income. Let's talk about the source of the income. Where do you get the money from, okay? Give you an example. Self-employed people will say, the amount of income, I made $120,000 last year. And I'll say, what's the source? And they'll say, well, the source is I own a business, okay? Here's the problem with owning your own business. The mortgage industry for a traditional, conventional FHA, VA, or USDA loan, which only comprises, God knows, almost all of the loans done in the United States today, okay? We don't use the gross income, we use the net income. So for all of you self-employed people out there, you're gonna get really sad in a split second. We use the income after deductions, write-offs, all that garbage that your accountant strips out of it. And for all of the self-employed people out there saying, Hesh, I let my accountant take care of it. You're nuts, man. If you let your accountant handle your financials, I understand you need an accountant, and I sure as hell use one. I've always used one, okay? But you're nuts if you just think I turn over a shoebox of receipts to my accountant and say, go to town with it, okay? No, you keep track of your expenses, make sure you're writing off the correct and legal things that you could write off, and we use the net income, okay? Let's say somebody says, Hesh, my hours change daily. Oh, by the way, I'm a truck driver. the source of the income, the source, okay? Where does the money come from? A truck driver, for example, let's just say they get paid by the load. Hesh, I get $1,000, or they'll say I get $1,000 a week as long as I'm driving. But then they're off for 3 days because a tsunami hit the state of Florida, for goodness sake, and they couldn't drive anywhere or do whatever they had to do. They didn't work for that week, okay? They got paid zero, okay? So the source of the income is what we look at. If you're sitting here saying, Hesh, what if I just started a new job? Okay, the job history, we want 2 years, same job, same location, same line of work. If it's not the same line of work, you've got some breaks, we have to look into the reasons why. The source of the income is heavily scrutinized. I cannot stress this enough. The source of the income. As a matter of fact, I'm talking to a car salesman right now who just started their job 18 months ago, 100% commission. The dollar figure of their income, they're gonna make like $100,000 this year. Hesh, I made $100,000. But the source of the income, it does not meet the 2-year requirement. That's the basic starting point of a loan. But there's something called exceptions, everybody. We give exceptions. You do not have to be on the job for 2 years. You do not have to be with this particular employer for 2 years. You do not even have to be in the same line of work for 2 years. You could have never worked a day in your life when you're starting your first job next week, and we could still possibly do a loan for you. There are a set of guidelines that fall into what we call exceptions, okay? But it all begins with the amount of the income and the source of the income. That's the starting point. It's the amount of the income and the source of the income. And for all of you loan officers out there watching me, don't try to turn into some Harvard graduate with a PhD and make this harder than it is. This is basic 101 lending. Get rid of all the garbage, get rid of all the outside noise. When somebody tells you they make this, they make that, but they don't show this, they don't show that, get rid of all that garbage. Identify the income, the amount, and identify the source of it. Separate them out, identify them individually, analyze them individually, shut everything else off. And when you do it like that as a loan officer, you will make almost no mistakes ever. You will give people definitive answers immediately. It's not going to take you 3 weeks. You're going to lose less transactions, have less pissed off customers, have less stress, and live a happier life, okay? This is how important employment history is. It's the amount of the income and it's the source of the income. When it comes to the source of the income, we'd like to see the 2-year job history. We'd like to see 2 years in the same line of work. And if you don't meet those 2 requirements, I say to people, what's the story? Show me the story, show me your resume. Let's see what we're looking at and how this all comes together. We can work with almost any situation to give you definitive answers up front. It doesn't mean I give a loan to every single human being that says, I'm getting paid money, okay? We've got to look over a lot of those things. That's how important employment is. Follow it, write it down, watch my other videos, subscribe to this page and share it with your friends, and we'll catch you at the next video.